I'm not supposed to be afraid of the dark. Not at 27, not with 3 years of hunting these woods under my belt, and definitely not while wearing $200 worth of camel gear that makes me look like I mean business. But here I am. The Tomoka Forest always felt like home. Every fall since I moved to Washington, I drive the 40 miles from Seattle, park my truck at the old ranger station, and disappear into the trees for a weekend. The locals knew my face. The bartender at Murphy's would pour my whiskey before I sat down. "Going up the mountain again, Marcus?" she'd ask, and I'd nod, tip heavy, feel like I belonged somewhere. This time was different. Beginning of winter 2023, and I should have stayed home. Should have listened when old Jimmy at the gas station looked at my hunting permit and said, "Weather's turning mean up there." Should have paid attention when my ex, Rachel, texted me, "Really? You're going now? After everything?" After everything. That's a nice way to put it. After I lost my job, after I told my dad to go away, after I realized I was turning into the kind of man who drinks alone and picks fights with people who love him. The forest was supposed to clear my head. It was supposed to remind me I was good at something. I hacked the abandoned trail, the one the Park Service doesn't maintain anymore, because I wanted to get away from the weekend warriors with their bright orange vests and their podcasts playing through phone speakers. 2 hours I knew. I found my spot, a hunting blind someone built years ago, half collapsed but still functional. Set up my equipment, made coffee on my camp stove, watched the fog roll into the isolated valley below, like a gray ocean. That's when things went sideways. First, the rustling leaves, not wind rustling, something moving through them, heavy, deliberate. I glassed the area with my scope but saw nothing except white fog and dark trees. Fine, probably an elk. Then the distant snapping, branches breaking, maybe 50 yards out. I waited. Every hunter knows you wait. You don't spook your game by moving too fast, breathing too loud, existing too obviously. I waited 20 minutes. The snapping got closer. My coffee went cold in my hands. The fog thickened until I could barely see 30 feet. The temperature dropped, like someone opened a freezer door in the middle of the woods. My breath came out in clouds. Frost started creeping across the dead leaves around my blind, these little white fingers spreading out like something was fading in slow motion. That's when I heard the growl. Low, deep. Not a bear. I've heard bears, not a cougar. This was something that vibrated in my chest, made my back teeth ache. It came from everywhere and nowhere, like the fog itself was angry. I'm not ashamed to say I felt cold sweat run down my spine. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "Okay, Marcus. You're fine. It's just an animal. You have your equipment. You're the apex predator here." Funny how we lie to ourselves. I stayed in that blind until the growling stopped, until the silence came. And let me tell you, the silence was worse. In the forest, you've always got something. Birds, insects, wind, the creek down the valley. This silence was absolute, like the world was holding its breath. I decided to pack up, forget the hut. I'd come back in spring, when the sun stayed out past 4 p.m. and the fog didn't look like something with intention. That's when I found the frightening discovery. I nearly stepped on it. A deer, at least, it used to be a deer. Now it was just twisted remains, arranged in a pattern that made my brain hurt to look at. The structure was wrong. Bent in directions nature doesn't bend, spiral fractures, the form open like a flower, and the smell. Iron in decay, and something else. Something chemical, like ozone after lightning. What the heck did this? I said out loud, and immediately regretted it, because my voice sounded too small, too human. The echoing footsteps answered me. Not echoing, like someone was walking behind me, matching my pace, but delayed by half a second. I spun around. Nothing. Just fog and the warped tree line, where the pines bent toward each other like they were sharing secrets. I started walking faster. The footsteps matched me. I started running. The footsteps followed. My flashlight started flickering. Fresh batteries that morning, and now the light strobed like a heartbeat. Bright, dim, bright, dim. In the dim moments, I saw things. Shadows that moved wrong. Crawling shadows that slid between the trees horizontally, defying gravity. This isn't real, I panted. This is hypothermia. This is panic. This is... The radio on my belt crackled to life. I don't know why I grabbed it. Maybe instinct, maybe hope. I'd left the truck frequency on, in case someone needed help. "Hello?" I gasped. "Anyone there?" Static. Then, Marcus. My name, in my own voice. I threw the radio into the trees and kept running. The abandoned trail was behind me somewhere, but I'd lost it in the panic. The fog pressed in. The trees multiplied. Every direction looked the same, white above, dark below, and that creeping frost following me like a tide. I stumbled into a clearing. Wide eyes, trembling breath, I spun in circles trying to get my bearings. The valley should be east. The trail north. The stars. No stars. Just fog. And night closing in fast, even though my watch said 2 p.m. That's when I felt it. The invisible human presence. I can't explain it better than that. You know how you can feel when someone's watching you? That prickle on your neck? This was like being watched by 100 someones. From every direction, from inside my skin. What do you want? I shouted. The shifting darkness responded. The fog twisted, shapes formed and dissolved. Tall, thin, almost human but stretched like taffy. They moved in the spaces between my flashlight's flickering beam. When the light went bright, they vanished. When it dimmed, they crept closer. I backed up, hit a tree. Its bark felt wrong, soft and warm, like skin. Panic rising. Full-fledged panic. The kind where your brain stops making smart decisions and starts making survival decisions. I used my equipment to signal into the air. 3 shots, the universal signal for distress. The sound died instantly. Didn't echo, didn't carry. Just stopped. One of the shapes stepped into my light. It looked like me. Same camo outfit, same face, same wide, terrified eyes. But its movements were wrong, too smooth, too fluid, like watching someone move underwater. It tilted its head. You always came to these forests, it said in my voice. But this time is different. Get away from me. You're hunting, it continued, stepping closer. Always hunting, for meaning, for purpose, for something that proves you're not empty inside. Be quiet. But you're the game now, Marcus. You're the thing with no escape. You're the deer with the twisted form. I ran, didn't aim, didn't think. Just crashed through the forest like a wounded animal, branches whipping my face, the cold biting through my expensive camo like it was tissue paper. The frost followed me, climbing up tree trunks, spreading across stones. My breath came in sobs. The warped tree line opened up ahead. I recognized it, the ranger station, quarter mile. I could make it. Behind me, the footsteps, not echoing anymore, just following, patient, inevitable. My flashlight faded completely. The darkness was absolute except for one thing, glowing eyes, dozens of them, all around me, all watching, all waiting. I burst from the tree line at full sprint and hit something solid. Arms grabbed me. I screamed and swung wild. Good grief. Marcus, it's me, Jimmy, the gas station attendant, holding a proper floodlight, standing next to a park ranger I didn't know, both of them staring at me like I'd grown a second head. We heard signals, Jimmy said. You've been gone 6 hours. Your truck? 6 hours? I checked my watch. 8 p.m. It had been 2 p.m. a minute ago. No, it was just... I turned to point at the forest. The fog was gone. The trees were normal. The frost had vanished. In the distance, I could hear a truck on the highway. An owl calling. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary night. Did you see it? I grabbed Jimmy's jacket. Did you see anything in there? See what, son? The thing. The shapes. I stopped. Their faces told me everything. Concerned, pitying, the way you look at someone who's broken. The ranger drove me to the hospital. They checked me for hyperthermia, dehydration, substances, all negative. Probably disorientation, the doctor said. The fog can play tricks, the isolation, stress. I wanted to believe that, I really did. But when I got home and unpacked my gear, I found something in my jacket pocket, something I didn't put there, a small piece of structure, twisted, bent wrong, and a note, in my own handwriting. Next time, you won't leave. I haven't been back to the Tomoka forest, haven't been hunting at all. Sometimes, late at all, I hear footsteps outside my apartment that match my own. Sometimes my reflection moves half a second too slow. The hunter became the hunted, and the worst part, I think it's still hunting. I think about that night constantly. The way the frost spread like fingers across the ground. The way my own voice called to me from the radio. The way that thing, whatever it was, looked exactly like me, but moved like something wearing my skin as a costume. The doctor said it was stress, isolation, maybe some kind of breakdown brought on by everything that happened before, the job loss, the arguments, the feeling of being completely adrift. They gave me medication, suggested therapy, told me to take it easy. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what I felt. Sometimes I wonder if the forest was always like that, or if something changed. If maybe I wasn't the first person to stumble into that clearing and find something waiting. Jimmy mentioned once, over drinks I probably shouldn't have been having, that hunters go missing in those woods more often than people realize. Wandered off, the reports always say, got turned around in the fog. But what if they didn't wander off? What if they were taken? I've been researching the area, old newspaper articles, local legends. There are stories about the Tomoka forest going back 100 years, tales of people who went in and came out different, changed. Some never came out at all. The indigenous tribes who lived here first had a name for it, a word that roughly translates to the place where shadows walk. I thought I knew these woods, thought I understood them. 3 years of hunting, of tracking, of learning every trail and valley, but I only knew the surface. I only saw what the forest wanted me to see. Now I understand that the forest has layers, depths, and if you go deep enough, if you stay too long when the fog rolls in and the temperature drops, you might find yourself in a place where the rules are different, where things that shouldn't exist move through the trees, where your own reflection can step out of the mirror and follow you home. The piece of twisted structure sits in a drawer in my apartment. I should throw it away, should burn it, bury it, forget it exists. But I can't. It's proof. Proof that what happened was real, not just some stress-induced hallucination. And the note in my handwriting that I didn't write. Next time, you won't leave. I don't plan on there being a next time. I sold my hunting equipment, deleted the maps from my phone, told everyone who'd listen that I'm done with the outdoors, done with the solitude, done with trying to find myself in empty places. But late at night, when the city is quiet and the streetlights cast long shadows, I hear them, the footsteps, matching my pace, half a second behind. And I wonder if it matters that I'm not going back. Because maybe it followed me home. Maybe it was never about the forest at all. Maybe it was always about me. I felt it before I saw it. The quiet, the kind that presses on your ears like altitude. I was standing at the fork in the trail, old map in hand, and everything around me had stopped making noise. No birds, no wind through the pines, just my breath, too loud, and the brittle crackle of dry leaves under my boots when I shifted my weight. I'm Elias Cray, 42. I've been hunting these woods since I was 15, did search and rescue for over a decade before my knees started reminding me I'm not 20 anymore. I know what silence means in the forest. Usually it means something bigger than you just passed through. But this felt different. This felt like the woods were holding their breath. I shouldn't have trusted that map. Found it in a plastic sleeve at an estate sale 3 weeks back, tucked inside a hunting journal from the 70s. The trail it marked wasn't on any modern map, but the landmarks matched. The split oak, the creek bend, the old fire tower foundation. I told myself it was just outdated. The Forest Service had probably rerouted things. I told myself a lot of things that morning. The fork wasn't supposed to be there. Left path, worn and clear, headed toward the ridge I knew. Right path, barely visible under decades of leaf litter, curved down into a valley I'd never noticed before. The map showed the right path leading to what was marked as blind, good vantage. I'm practical. I follow evidence. The map had been right about everything else. My hands were cold when I folded the map back into my jacket. October cold, the kind that finds the gaps in your layers. I took the right path. The descent was gradual at first. The trees changed, older growth, trunks thick enough that 3 men couldn't circle them. Bark dark and wet looking, even though it hadn't rained in days. The trail beneath my boots felt soft, too soft, like the ground wanted to remember my footsteps. I kept my hunting equipment across my chest, more from habit than concern. I'd never felt unsafe in these woods, not once in 27 years. 15 minutes in, the fog started. It didn't roll in. That's what fog does. It rolls, it creeps, it has movement. This fog was just suddenly there, thick and low, pooling between the trees like something poured. I could see maybe 20 feet ahead. My breath joined it, white clouds that hung too long before dissolving. That's when I noticed the trees. They were wrong. Not withered, not diseased, wrong. The trunks curved in ways that didn't follow wind or sun. They bent toward the center of the valley, all of them, like they were leaning in to look at something, or leaning away. The canopy above formed shapes that made my eyes hurt when I tried to focus on them. I stopped walking. My heart was doing that thing where it beats in your throat instead of your chest. I told myself it was the descent, the elevation change, the cold air. I told myself the trees just grew strange here, soil composition, water table, something. Logical. The rustling started behind me. I turned, equipment ready, safety off. Nothing. Just fog, and those warped trees, and a trail behind me already looking unfamiliar. The rustling came again, leaves moving with purpose. Something passing through the undergrowth about 30 yards back. Too rhythmic for wind, too deliberate. I called out. My voice sounded flat, absorbed by the fog before it could travel. No answer. The rustling stopped. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes, barely breathing, watching the fog swirl in my peripheral vision. My hands were sweating inside my gloves despite the cold. Every instinct I'd honed over decades told me to mark this tree and head back up. But my pride, goodness, my stubborn pride, said I'd come this far. The blind was probably just ahead. I could at least see it, confirm the map, then head back before dark. I kept walking. The fog got thicker. The valley floor was flat when I reached it, unnaturally flat, like something had scraped it level. The trees formed the perimeter around a clearing maybe 40 yards across. In the center stood the hunting blind, if you could call it that. There was a platform, 12 feet up, built between 4 trees that grew in a perfect square. The wood was ancient, weathered to gray, but solid. Too solid. Wood that old should have collapsed. I didn't approach it right away. Something in my gut was screaming. That's when I saw the remains. It was 10 feet from the blind's base, and I almost missed it in the fog. A deer. No, it had been a deer. The form was twisted, spine curved backwards like something had folded it the wrong way. The legs were wrong too, joints bent in directions that don't exist. The head was intact, eyes open, but the skull had caved inward from the inside, like pressure had built up and collapsed it. There was nothing natural about it. No sign of predation, no insects, even though it looked maybe a day old. My mouth went dry. I'd seen animals meet their end in every way nature allows. Predators, disease, starvation, accidents. This wasn't any of them. This was something else. I stepped back, and my boot hit something hard. Another form, raccoon, twisted into a spiral, tail wrapped 3 times around its own form. Then another, a fox, folded like paper, bones visible through gaps in the skin where they'd broken through. They formed a circle around the blind, 7 animals, maybe 8, all warped into impossible shapes. My breath was coming shallow now, that high, tight breathing that means panic is close. I backed toward the tree line, counting my steps, keeping the blind in sight. Professional training kicking in. Don't run, don't turn your back, keep your bearings. The fog shifted. No, something moved through the fog, big enough to displace it, silent, circling from my right to my left, staying in the gray. I raised my equipment, finger on the trigger, tracking the movement. My hands were steady. They're always steady. It's the one thing I trust about myself when everything else falls apart. The movement stopped. The fog settled. I waited, lungs burning from holding my breath. A sound came from behind me, not rustling this time. Footsteps, deliberate, heavy. Walking in rhythm with what should have been my own heartbeat, I spun around. Nothing. Just trees and fog and that horrible flat ground. The footsteps continued from where I was now facing, moving right to left again. I turned. Nothing. They came from behind me again. It was matching me. Every time I turned, it turned, staying exactly opposite, using my own movement to mask its position. This wasn't animal behavior. This was intelligent. My heart was hammering now. All that calm gone. 27 years of experience evaporating into pure primal fear. The cold sweat on my back felt like ice water. My throat was so tight I couldn't swallow. I started backing up toward where the trail had entered the clearing, keeping my equipment up, scanning. The footsteps matched my pace, always the same distance, always hidden. Then they stopped. Everything stopped. No sound. No movement in the fog. No bird calls from outside the valley. The silence was complete, the kind that makes you hear your own pulse moving. My flashlight. I grabbed it from my belt, clicked it on. The beam cut through the fog in a solid shaft, illuminating nothing but white. I swung it in an arc. The beam flickered, once, twice, then held steady. Something flickered back. At the edge of my light, maybe 15 yards out, 2 points of reflection. Eye shine, low to the ground, but wrong. Too far apart, too steady. Animals look away, animals blink. These just watched. I backed up faster, forgot about staying calm, forgot about procedure. My boot caught something, another form, and I nearly went down. Caught myself, kept the light aimed at those eyes. They moved, not forward, not back. They rose. Up and up, lifting 6 feet, 7 feet, until they were level with my face. Still the same distance away, still reflecting my flashlight. The smell hit me then, metallic, sharp, like old copper mixed with ozone after lightning. It was so strong I could taste it, coating the back of my throat. I ran. Training gone, logic gone, just pure fear pumping through my legs. I hit the tree line and followed the slope up, branches whipping my face, equipment banging against my chest. Behind me, nothing. No footsteps, no pursuit, just silence chasing me up that valley. I climbed for what felt like hours but was probably 15 minutes, lungs burning, legs screaming. The fog thinned, the trees looked normal again. I reached the fork and didn't stop, kept going until I hit the main trail, the one I knew, the one that made sense. Only when I reached my truck did I stop, hands on knees, gasping. The sun was setting. I'd lost 4 hours somehow. I'd entered the valley at noon. My watch said 4:30. I fumbled for my radio. I always carry a radio, backup for backup. It's protocol. Clicked it on, static, then my own voice coming back at me, delayed by half a second, saying words I wasn't speaking. I turned it off, threw it in the truck bed. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before getting the door open. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors, instinctive, childish, and just breathed. My heart was still pounding, sweat cooling on my skin making me shiver. I looked at my hands. They were scratched, showing minor marks from the branches. Real, physical. This was real. I drove home with my headlights on and every door locked and my equipment on the passenger seat. And I didn't look in the rearview mirror because something in me knew I'd see those eyes reflected there. That was 6 days ago. I haven't been back. Won't go back. I burned the map in my fireplace that night and watched to make sure every piece turned to ash. But I still have the scratches on my hands, fading now to thin white lines. I still have the smell memory, that metallic tang that fills my nose sometimes when I'm falling asleep. And 3 nights ago, when I got up for water at 2 a.m., I looked out my kitchen window and saw fog in my backyard. We don't get fog here, not in town, not in October. I stood there watching it, glass of water sweating in my hand, and I saw something move through it, circling, the same pattern, right to left, staying hidden, staying opposite. My heart hasn't slowed down since. Not really. There's this constant tightness in my chest now, this feeling like I'm still in that valley, still being watched. My body knows something my mind won't accept. I keep every light on at night now. I check the locks twice, 3 times. I moved my equipment next to my bed, because the fog came back last night, thicker. And this morning, when I went out to my truck, there were footsteps in the frost on my lawn, heavy ones, starting at the tree line and circling my house. 7 times, 8 times, the same count as the remains. They stop at my front door, just stop, like whatever made them stood there, watching, waiting. I'm telling you this because I need someone to know, need someone to understand, that there are places maps should not show us, trails that stay hidden for a reason, valleys where the rules we trust don't apply. I'm a practical man. I believe in what I can track, what I can see, what makes logical sense. But my hands are shaking typing this. My throat is tight. There's that metallic smell again, faint, coming from somewhere in my house. And when I look out my window right now, at 3:15 in the afternoon, on a clear October day, there's fog gathering at my tree line. It's moving toward the house. My body knows what's coming before my mind will let me believe it. Some things don't stay in the woods when you find them. Some things follow you home.
I felt Jake's hand grip my shoulder before I even heard it. The snap of a branch behind us. Too loud, too deliberate. My breath caught. We both froze mid-step, equipment halfway raised, eyes locked on the mist ahead. The fog had rolled in thick an hour ago, turning the late November woods into something we didn't recognize anymore. Another snap. Closer this time. Then nothing. Just our breathing and the weak pulse hammering against my ribs. We'd been coming to these woods every hunting season since we were 18. 10 years of the same trails, the same cabin, the same bad coffee at 4 in the morning. Jake and I knew this place like the back of our hands, or at least we thought we did. We weren't reckless. We had permits, radios, a cooler full of sandwiches back at the truck. This was supposed to be routine. One last trip before the season ended. One last chance to bag something decent and feel like we'd earned the freezer space. But that morning felt different from the moment we stepped out of the truck. The air was too still. No birds, no rustling in the underbrush. Just a heavy, wet silence that clung to our jackets and made every footstep sound like an intrusion. Jake joked about it, said the deer were probably sleeping in, same as us. I laughed, but my gut didn't. My gut told me to turn around. I didn't listen. We picked up the trail around noon. A massive buck, bigger than anything we'd seen in years. The tracks were fresh, deep, the kind that makes your hands shake a little when you kneel down to measure them. Jake was grinning like a kid. He said this was it. This was the one. I nodded, checked my equipment, and followed him deeper into the trees. The mist thickened as we walked. It moved wrong, not drifting, but crawling, like it was following the same path we were. I told myself it was just weather, late-season fog, nothing more. Then we saw the deer. It was standing maybe 60 yards out, perfectly still, facing away from us. Antlers like a crown, 12 points, maybe more. Jake raised his equipment slowly, finger hovering near the trigger. Something made him pause. The deer wasn't moving. Not its head, not its tail, not even its ears. It just stood there, frozen in the white fog, like a statue someone had placed in the middle of the woods. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to whisper to Jake, to tell him something was off, but I couldn't find the words. The deer started moving, but it didn't walk. It glided, smooth, silent, like its hooves weren't touching the ground. No sound, no rustling leaves. Just this slow, fluid drift through the mist, deeper into the trees. Jake lowered his equipment. I saw his hands trembling. He looked at me, and I could see it in his eyes, the same knot of dread that was twisting in my chest. We should have turned back. We both knew it. But we didn't. We followed. The trail led us into a part of the forest we'd never hunted before. The trees were older here, thicker, their branches tangled overhead like fingers locking together. The mist clung to everything. Our boots sank into soft, wet earth. Then I smelled it. Decay, sour, like something spoiled, left out for days. I gagged, pulled my collar over my nose. Jake muttered something under his breath, but I didn't catch it. My ears were ringing. We found the dark trail 20 minutes later. It wasn't from a deer. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. It was too dark, too thick, smeared across the base of a tree in long, deliberate streaks. And beside it, footprints, not hooves. Footprints. human-sized, barefoot, pressed deep into the mud. They ran parallel to ours for a dozen yards, then vanished into the underbrush. My heart slammed against my ribs. Jake's breathing turned shallow beside me. He said maybe it was another hunter. Maybe someone got hurt. His voice cracked when he said it. He didn't believe it either. That's when we heard the howl. It came from somewhere behind us. Low, guttural, not quite animal, not quite. Yanked me forward. The cabin appeared out of nowhere. A small, decaying structure we'd never seen before, half collapsed, its windows shattered and black. Jake didn't hesitate. He kicked the door open and shoved me inside. We slammed it shut, braced it with a rusted chair, backed into the corner. Our breathing was ragged, desperate. I could taste copper in my mouth. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Outside, the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse. It pressed against the cabin walls, thick and suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat, too loud, too fast. Jake was staring at the door, his equipment raised, his finger on the trigger. I watched the broken windows, waiting for something to appear. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time didn't work right anymore. Then we heard it. Voice. Soft. Familiar. My own voice. It was calling to Jake from outside, telling him it was safe, telling him to open the door. It wasn't speaking. My mouth was clamped shut, my teeth grinding together so hard my jaw ached. The voice kept talking, using my words, my inflection, my tone. Jake looked at me, his face white as paper. I shook my head frantically. The voice laughed, my laugh, and then shifted. Now it was Jake's voice, calling to me, begging me to let him in. But Jake was right beside me, his lips pressed into a bloodless line. Something scratched at the door, long, slow drags, like fingernails on wood. Then it started pounding. The whole cabin shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The door bent inward with each impact, the wood splintering. Jake fired through the door, once, twice. The sound was deafening. The pounding stopped. Silence again. We waited. My hands were cramping from gripping the equipment. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. Jake whispered that we needed to wait for daylight. I nodded. We slid down the wall, sat on the floor, kept our equipment raised. Don't think either of us blinked. Dawn never came. The darkness outside didn't fade. It just sat there, heavy and wrong, pressing against the cabin like something alive. Hours passed, or what felt like hours. Our phones had stopped working. Our watches had stopped. Jake started whispering that we needed to move, that we couldn't stay here. I didn't answer. I was watching the window. There were faces in the mist, dozens of them. Pale, hollow-eyed, their mouths hanging open in silent screams. They pressed against the glass, their breath fogging it up, their eyes fixed on us. I recognized one. A hunter who'd mysteriously disappeared 2 years ago. Then another, and another. All of them staring, all of them waiting. Jake broke first. He stood up, said he'd rather take his chances running than waiting. I tried to grab him, but he shoved the door open and bolted. I watched him disappear into the mist. I heard him scream, once, sharp, and cut short. Then nothing. I'm still in the cabin. I don't know how long it's been. Days, maybe. The faces are still at the windows. They don't leave. They just watch. Sometimes they mouth my name. Sometimes they scratch the glass. My equipment is empty now. My hands haven't stopped shaking. The decaying smell is inside now, thick and choking. I can hear footsteps again, inside the cabin this time. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. I don't think I'm alone anymore.